Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to As You Pass By, and I'm your host, James West. Today, we're going to be looking in on the infamous Astor Place riots of 1849. These took place in or around the Astor Place Opera House, which was built in 1847. It was completed, and it did not really survive very much longer after the riots took place. The Astor Place is the area is just sort of to the north of Bowery and the beginning of 4th Avenue. It's intersected by 8th Street and by Astor Place, the street of Astor Place. And it's filled with historical significance. There are a number of different things there that are of historical interest. But we're going to talk about the riots today. So what were the riots and why are they significant? The city in 1849 was a very different place than it was today. Astor Place was located at the very top of Lafayette Place, which is now Lafayette Street. Originally, in the 1840s and prior to that, it was really only it was only a few blocks long, and it went down to Houston Street. Beyond that, it was expanded, and a number of other streets were added to it south of Houston Street to become Lafayette Street. But in the early 1800s, it was a very exclusive neighborhood. It was one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the country, in the Western Hemisphere, really. It was where the Astors lived, hence the name. But the Opera House, which was built and which stands just about where the downtown subway entrance is on Astor Place, and just south of 8th Street. We'll walk around there, and so you can get a better sense. What was the riot about? So it was really about a lot of things. On the surface, it was about a Shakespearean performance of Macbeth, and it was performed by an English actor by the name of William Charles Macready, and the Astor Opera House at that time had a number of very specific rules about what you could wear, how you had to dress, how you had to look, and how you had to behave. It was considered to be the desire of the owners was that it be a place for the wealthy to come and enjoy themselves in genteel tranquility. So Macready was what was not a big favorite of the populace of New York. There was another actor who was his rival by the name of Edwin Forrest, who lived in the city. He lived in Philadelphia as well. He had a number of very sumptuous houses. But he was the one who was favored to play Macbeth. So when the production began, the members of the audience were basically started harassing him, throwing vegetables, rotten eggs, fruit, chairs in some instances, up onto the stage and making a lot of noise. This continued on. It disrupted the performance. The performers had to complete the performance of Macbeth using pantomime, basically no words. They could no longer speak because they couldn't be heard over the noise of the audience. What happened then was that the mayor, who was at that time Caleb Smith Woodhull, decided that the best thing to do would be to call the 7th Regiment and the at the time very small New York City Police Department. It wasn't really called that then. It was a loose sort of association of different groups. There were about 100 police there, and there were about 300 members of the 7th Regiment. And the mayor ordered them to open fire on the demonstrators who were out on the sidewalk, not inside of the Opera House. But they opened fire. They fired one warning shot, and then they started shooting the demonstrators out on the street. And so I've checked about 7 or 8 different references, and some of them say that there were 11 to 18 people killed. Some of them say 27 to 29. Some of them say it was in the 30s. I think that it's safe to say no one really knows how many people were killed. Quite a lot more were wounded, and the performance ended. The riots continued again the next day, although nothing much happened. There were no more incidents like the night before. But the crowd who was inside were largely Irish and American laborers who were the Irish were in the midst of a revolution against the English. It did not result in independence until 1919, but there was quite a lot of anti-English sentiment in Ireland at the time, and quite a lot of fighting that was going on for quite some time. So, but also 1849 was a significant year because it was a year after the European revolutions in France, Germany, and throughout Europe, really. But the most notable ones were in Paris, in France, and in Germany. And it was thought by many that it was the beginning of a socialist revolution. And that's exactly what Mayor Woodhull thought at that time. And so there was quite a bit of fear that there was going to be another social upheaval like the one in Europe. So it was violently put down, and it was the worst civil disturbance and response to a civil disturbance in American history at that time. So, and the Opera House didn't really survive past that. It closed a year later. It was repurposed. The same building was reused as the Mercantile Library. And then in the 1880s, it was torn down, and Clinton Hall was built there to replace it. That is the building that is currently there. And it's been a number of different things. It's been a union hall. It's been, currently condominiums, but it's had a number of purposes since the 1880s. And we're looking straight ahead at basically where the Opera House would have been. That's a little small segment of Astor Place that's on a diagonal to Broadway. And this is now a building. It's an apartment building now, but it was in the 1880s. It was built as Clinton Hall, and it's had a number of different transformations. And this large building over on the right is Wanamaker's department store, which was built in around 1900. It was a huge department store. There's a whole story behind it. It was quite an amazing experience to go in, but we'll deal with that one in a later installment, because it's a lot, and I don't want to try and fit it all in 10 minutes. But and it stands. Wanamaker's building stands on where the St. Anne's Catholic Church would have been, which is on the right side of the drawing. And this is straight ahead where the Opera House would have been. The only difference is that there was a bit of an elevation in the drawing, so it was probably coming from across the street. Astor Place was renovated in it started in around 2014. And it was, I think, finally finished in about 2017. It was a multi-block renovation project. And one of the things they did was they traced the old street lines of Astor Place, of Stuyvesant Street. And you could see here, I'm going to pan down a little bit, but you could see the actual line that was put in to reproduce where Astor Place would have extended to, and at that time it was probably still called Stuyvesant Street, which we're going to see, which is right directly behind me. It's pretty hard to see, there's not much here, but in 1849 it's likely that this was the spot where the vantage point for the drawing was taken. Another historic building. This is actually where the Lincoln-Douglas debates took place in the 1850s, prior to the Civil War. And then also another building that we're not going to deal with today because it has a lot of historical significance, which I'll get to in another installment, but not today's. So I'm not going to move too much, but Stuyvesant Street is straight ahead from where I am right now. You can see, it's a little hard to see, but you can see the street lines open out to about 2nd Avenue. It actually continued all the way to the East River at some point. It was in the early 1800s. And it was eventually parceled off by the Peter Stuyvesant family. So here we are on West 22nd Street in Manhattan. This is we're looking straight at the house that Edwin Forrest used to live in. And it was built in 1835. I don't believe he lived in it until about 1839. And it was one of many of his houses that, well, maybe many is the wrong word, but he had other places where he lived in Manhattan at around the time of the Astor Place riot, and also he lived in Philadelphia. So, but this was his kind of private retreat to get away from, well, everyone. Anyway, it's a beautiful block here. I don't get to come up here very often. So as long as we're here, we might as well take a little walk down West 22nd Street. It's a beautiful block, as you can see. And there's a lot of history here. This is 414 East 22nd Street. And it's, just since we're here, we might as well take a little look at it. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy it. And please remember to like and subscribe. And remember, the subscribing is free. It's not, you don't have to pay anything for it. It's completely free. All you need is a Gmail account or a Google account. Anyway, we'll see you again maybe in a week or two. Thanks for watching.